play in the rice sector, and I can tell you that the biggest headache we have is paddy. They call it rice pyramid. We only have sufficient, near sufficient rice when it's harvest period. Post-harvest, we all scramble for rice. We look for paddy everywhere. Where is it? The pyramid. I'm looking for where to get the pyramid that people have spoken about. You know, during harvest, like we are right now, expect the price of rice to come down slightly. But after the harvest season, where is it? Where is it? Where are the storage? All over the country. We keep hearing that we have all of these things government had mentioned. But those that are playing, the real player, as a miller in the sector, those information that government is sharing are not very correct. That is why, and you don't need to believe me, just find out what the price of rice will be in March every year and check the price to October, November. What happens to the price of rice? It keeps going up. The field season you have for harvest, about 3 to 4 months, it comes down slightly. Then it keeps going up. So the price of rice in 2011, 2015, and now, it went up, you know, in preceding year before 2011, higher in 2015, and even now. So more and more people want to play. The supply side has actually been affected because there is no party. So when government gives loans, people say that yeah, the loans are good, they are helpful, which is very correct. But which farms is having sufficient output? Where are the farms with sufficient output? Most of the time, what we hear is what central bank recently mentioned and muted, that some of the persons that collected the loans, particularly for rice, have been unable to pay back. And even if you go to Kebbi State, it's a big issue now for those that have collected the money, even in cooperatives, when it comes to ability to pay back. So for me, I think some of these things have not been thought through. Leave central bank out of it. Go to trader money. Even some of the monies that were given by government as loans, small loans to people, how many people have paid back? And what do we have as part of non-performing loan, you know, under some of these schemes? So I understand some things may be political, but if you want to look at the economics, I can tell you that some of those money may not come back eventually. And it will now have impact on government. If we even affect government and affect the population, other people that are supposed to have access to that loan, you know, they will not have access to it. But if we have set up an independent body to work with commercial bank, whose job is to give loans, they know the people. Government may say that we are going to use your land as collateral, you know, because you have to plant somewhere, which is what Bank of Agriculture is doing in Nigeria. The rate is low, you know, about 12%, but you have to give us the land. So if you say you are not paying back, we will take over the land. That's what Bank of Agriculture does. So I was of the opinion that central bank would have partnered with some of these sister agencies like part of Bank of Agriculture, because they understand farmers better, obviously, than the Central Bank of Nigeria. You know, we spend significantly every 2-3 years to print money. If more and more people get to e-Naira, it's really going to help government to reduce costs meaningfully. Two, it's also going to help government to monitor, and it's going to enhance transparency, particularly those that register government. I'm talking of a monetary authority now. We don't need to depend on commercial banks for them to have access to some data or some information that they may need. Again, it's going to benefit Nigerians because costs that would have been charged from interbank transactions, e-Naira, carrier of e-wallet to another carrier of e-wallet, exchange is seamless, it is faster, it is cheaper to run. But it's not without its own consequences. You know, when e-Naira was launched, a lot of Nigerians felt that, wow, we have gotten to the end of devaluation. Unfortunately, e-Naira is equivalent of the same Naira. So whatever happened to Naira, inflation, devaluation, your e-Naira is devalued, inflation will hit your e-Naira the same way, just the same way. And just to clarify, e-Naira is not cryptocurrency. You know, it's just an electronic money. Instead of carrying currency or fiat, you are carrying it as a digital currency, what people will understand. So that's about the difference. So it's another form of carrying the same Naira. So if there is devaluation, it's not going to make your e-Naira improve. And it's equivalent 1 Naira to 1 e-Naira. And the reasons are simple. We cannot print the US dollars. So, and because we cannot print, our central bank don't have the power to print the US dollars. It has to benchmark it, even though I was of the opinion that our central bank should have written to the National Assembly for us to create another currency, which we should have benchmarked e-Naira on. That would have saved Naira continuous devaluation. We can have two currencies within the same economy. There is no law that says our currency must be. How many currencies are in China? Not one. One is benchmarked against the dollar. And when it comes to trade, you want to export, you can. So we don't necessarily need to have Naira. Because when you look at Naira in the 70s to Naira today, it's a joke. And we are all working. The fact that you are in Nigeria and you are spending Naira, it already puts you at a disadvantage compared to your colleague that lives in America. And I'll tell you why. You are doing the same job. You are both journalists. And when you start your job, you are paid $1,000, say, per week. So the man in America maintains his 1,000. 5 years later, because of inflation in Nigeria, because of exchange rate pressure, you are still earning $1,000 to you. But in the real sense, because most of the things you consume, from your suit to your shoe to your eyeglass to your books, they are imported. You go back to the same international market, you realize that your $1,000 has suddenly become $500. Meanwhile, at home, you are still earning the face value, which we call nominal money. But in the real sense, you see, money for economics is not how much you earn. It is what you earn can buy. What you could buy with the money has reduced significantly. And this is what is common on the streets in Nigeria. What people could buy with their money in 2018, 2019 has significantly reduced because government emaciated the value of Naira. And this is another danger of devaluation. So for me, I can tell you that e-Naira is fine. It will save government some costs. It will also make transactions to be faster at the expense of the cost. The person that will lose the most, perhaps, will be commercial bank because they built a lot of infrastructure. I could see that central bank is trying to integrate the e-Naira with their apps. But once Nigeria start downloading the e-Naira directly, some persons will do away with the apps. And what happens to the money spent to build the infrastructure? Will central bank compensate the banks, for spending that much? Because in a way, it may become a competition. It may appear as though the regulator is competing with the regulated, and we know it's not professional. A lot of people shy away from the truth. Look at Germany, the largest population in Europe. We don't hear about German farms, even though there are a lot of farms in Germany. What you hear is about German machine. Look at China. China has the largest population in the world and in Asia. Of course, in Asia. You don't hear about Chinese farms, even though there are a lot of farms in China. But what do you hear about? Chinese machines, Chinese outputs, Chinese production, China's production. Come to Nigeria, the largest population in Africa, quote and unquote, the largest economy in Africa. But Nigeria, rather than focusing on production and manufacturing, because of increasing population, one of the highest population growth rate in the world, Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, by the way, what do we focus on? Agriculture. It contributes about 20% to our population, near 50% of contribution to employment in Nigeria. But what is the quality of job from farms? That's the real question. How many Nigerian graduates would like to go to farm? I am not saying farming is not good, but farming seems to be the beginning. And I will say this, farming and crude oil, they are almost the same thing in economics. Economists classify production into three: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Agriculture takes significant parts. Oil takes about 7%. That's getting really big. Then you have service that took quantum, and you have we have sandwiched production, manufacturing, in between those three. We have now reduced it, and you're looking for jobs. You cannot get jobs because you are the largest population in your continent. So, because Primary and primary. So when people say that Nigerian economy is diversified, you hear that from them. We are diversified. It's only that government revenue comes from oil. That's not what we are talking about. When we say you should diversify economy, we are saying leave primary to secondary. That's what it means. That is, you need to take steps to move from agriculture-based, crude oil-based economy to refining your crude oil, which is secondary, because you are not going to deal with more people, you are going to deal with more machineries, then agriculture-based to processing. That's exactly what we can make our country great. But that will not happen without having power supply sufficiently. And I've said, I know this will not come in 1 year based on the realities of today in Nigeria. But we can start by rationing power for industry, create industrial hubs. You know, Ilupeju used to be an industrial center. What is it today? Idu is what government is trying to put, but it's construction site, mostly construction company. There are few pockets of firms here and there that are not doing core manufacturing, core production. So government should ensure that power goes to those areas where we are producing, especially during the daytime, that labor will be active. Because if you want to solve unemployment figure, let Nigeria power output multiply, or let's guarantee 20 hours to 24 hours power supply. Unemployment we have, you know why? It is a mentality in this part of the world that once it is 8 p.m. or 10 p.m., it's time to sleep because of darkness, even in homes. Meanwhile, in other environments, people could work at night. So there will be shifts, and that will mop up and suck unemployment significantly. But how do we do that when we don't have sufficient power supply? So it's a real conversation we need to have. And anybody that is saying he wants to contest to be a leader in Nigeria must first tell Nigeria what is he going to do to bring economic miracle. And the miracle will come in form of power supply. It will come in form of rail. And the rail we have now will be to connect industrial zone with farm zones and markets. Not because, oh, this man is from this region, let us connect rail and allow people to move. That's not the essence. Cargo, which will guarantee jobs. Nigeria's solution will not, people have said it has defined many. It is not true. We know where the jobs are. The jobs are with firms. We want to be like America, but we don't want to produce like America. We want to be like Germany, but we don't want to produce like Germany. Recently, China, that's what the world wants to be like. But will Nigerian government be willing to invest what it takes? We have the population. When countries or when investors around the world, and I'm not talking about portfolio investors, I'm talking of manufacturers around the world, know that the environment in Nigeria is quality and good enough for them to come. And that Nigeria has labor. So instead of emphasizing university education, technical education should have been emphasized in Nigeria. That is how China started. Guarantee power supply, let labor be available, let it be cheap, even though labor is cheap now. But what can they do? How many Nigerians can construct a rice mill? I know there are, but how many? And people that are constructing, coming to Nigeria to construct, are not engineers, they are technicians. They don't have university education. You don't need university education. You want to mop up unemployment? Go into housing. You don't need a professor to construct a house. If you have, fantastic. But you don't need. You know, you need artisans. You have some of these people that are out of school, which I don't think is nice. But of course, they have to eat because there is autonomous consumption. So for me, the solution to the problem that was asked is for government to transform the economy.